Welcome to Target Market Insights, the Multifamily and Marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Welcome to Target Market Insights, the Multifamily and Marketing Show. I'm your host, John Kasman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this show, do me one very quick favor, all right? Here's a really important thing. You hear me say this all the time. I'm going to say it to you again. I need you to take action and help your boy out. Leave us that 5-star rating and review. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we're going to be talking to Chris Weiher. Chris Weiher is an expert when it comes to video marketing, specifically for business-to-business transactions, as well as building a personal brand. He is the owner and founder of Clever Creative, and he also is an entrepreneur who's based in Chicago with 8 years of video creation experience. Let's welcome to the show, Chris Weiher.
Thank you, John. And just a little correction, it's Clever Creative.
Clever. Well, you know what? I will one day learn how to read my own handwriting. This is why I don't go off of my handwriting and actually go off the computer. But yes, the founder of Clever Creative, not just clever. There's an A. I see the A. I really do. It's right there. But Clever Creative.
We did that on purpose to make it challenging for people. My dad was a butcher, and so that's where the Clever image came from. And it sounds like clever. So that's a backstory.
You know what? That's one of those things. I forget the word, but that's one of those things where, I think clever is one of those like little things you send that I'm supposed to read clever, even though it's cleaver. I'm still supposed to take away. Those guys are pretty clever with their creative.
Yes, it kind of sounds like clever. It alliterates well with creative. And I was like, this is the one.
Well, either way, it's clever. It's Clever Creative. Listen, I gave a very high level overview. Why don't you take a minute and give a little bit more context?
Sure. Yeah. So quick background on me. I've been in business for 8 years now, in video production for about 16. And we've done a lot of animation work. We've done a lot of explainer videos. We've done a lot of sales videos. And, honestly, like I think a lot of business owners, I was struggling to figure out marketing because a lot of our business was coming from word of mouth, which is great, but you can't really scale that or track that. And so late last year, I actually really dug into LinkedIn, doing videos on LinkedIn. And that for me, I've become a huge advocate for leveraging video on LinkedIn because a lot of companies were B2B companies, so it doesn't make sense to run ads. It's a lot of wasted ad spend. And really the way that people make business decisions is by getting to know other business owners and saying, I like you, you know what you're talking about, let's work together. So it's kind of a no-brainer. But a lot of B2B businesses don't really know how to market themselves. And so that's really kind of where sort of a new part of our business has come from, has been helping business owners with video on LinkedIn.
No, that's awesome to hear. And I think a lot of people can certainly relate to the challenges that you face. If you are a small business owner, especially one who has thrived off of referrals for the bulk of your business or people reaching out via social media, you may not have kind of a specific marketing plan built out, or you may not, spend a lot of money on advertising dollars and things like that. So understanding how to actually grow, how to gain new clients, it's something that's really interesting and a challenge that I think many people face. In our world, when it comes to our business, it's really based on investors, right? And how do we attract new investors into our business? How do we connect with them? How do we engage with them? And it's difficult to figure out where they're at. And sometimes we're B2B, sometimes we're B2C. It kind of just depends on the way you want to look at it. But I know a lot of folks kind of struggle in that realm. It's interesting that LinkedIn is the platform that you found as the avenue to really connect with some of these other business owners. Why do you think LinkedIn works more effectively than, say, some of the other social media platforms?
I think primarily because it is so many business owners on there and professionals on there, and everyone's there with a purpose. They are there to either build their business, or they're there to find a new job, or to network with other people in their industries. And the other huge benefit to it is the organic reach. I've heard LinkedIn described as having the same organic reach that Facebook did in 2004. So I don't know if you remember that, but back then you put a post out on Facebook and all of a sudden, 300, 500, maybe 1,000 people would see your post. And then as it got more and more popular, they tamped that down. So now you put out a post on Facebook and it gets seen by like 30 people. So LinkedIn is still very, very good with organic, and there's no reason to say that it's going to change dramatically anytime soon. The main reason for that is that, you don't need 30,000 people to see a post to get a sale. You need 30 people to see it. So if you're getting 300 or 1,000, and those are targeted people in your industry, in your niche, that's really all you need. So I think those two things together are the best reasons to think about using LinkedIn to market.
Yeah, and you do some great videos. We've recently come in touch with each other, and I've been really impressed with the content that you're putting out. Not just because of the polish. It's not necessarily that they're really polished videos. It's that the content is just really strong. The messaging, the information. It's very helpful in a way that you don't see a lot of other people sharing that kind of valuable content. So I guess one of my questions is, as you go through your content creation process, what are some of the things that you do to ensure that you are creating something that the viewers actually want, that's very helpful? Because a lot of times this stuff is answers to questions that people aren't even thinking to ask, right? So it's that kind of value that I didn't think to ask that question. You hear this guy is with kind of an answer, or, solving a problem that I didn't even know I have. So what's your process in going through that, and what can the rest of us learn about making sure that we're creating content that serves our audience, as opposed to just, stating our benefits?
Right. I tell folks that I work with is write down 10 frequently asked questions you get from your customers, and then write down 10 frequently asked questions that you don't get, but you think people should be asking. And I did not come up with this. I heard it somewhere. I think other people use it for content as well, but it is a great recipe for figuring out your video content. And oftentimes those questions, like you said, like the questions that people aren't asking, but you really wish they would, end up being the best videos, because you have this wealth of knowledge that you want to tell people, but you really get a chance because they never asked that question. So the first video that I made on LinkedIn was, why should people be using video on LinkedIn? People, when I'm getting into like discovery calls, are always asking, what kinds of videos should I make, and how should I do it, and is my lighting right, and how much does it cost? But they don't always ask why, usually because they have their own ideas on it. But having been doing this for so long, I wanted to really speak to my thoughts on why that is. And that got an incredible response. And then from there, I kind of started going through my list, but I probably only made 3 or 4 videos from those initial 20 questions. And from the reactions that I was getting from the audience, that sort of points you in a direction to figure out, oh, people actually really want to hear more about this topic that I wasn't even thinking about talking about. So I'm going to make more videos about that. Oftentimes, that may not be the content that's perfect for your ideal client, but if you find out that there's an audience there that are asking these questions and you know the answer, just make that content for them, help them out, and then they want to refer you and connect you with other people in their networks.
No, great tips there. And I think that the writing down the 20 questions, that's something that's easy and practical. And any one of us can do that right away. Understanding, what questions do you get? What are your frequently asked questions in your business? What do you get from your clients and potential customers? Write those down, answer those questions.
Yeah.
Even, and I would say too, like, doing that, you have multiple ways to leverage that content too. you can certainly post it on LinkedIn, but even if you wanted to have that on your website or, shoot it via email or something like that, where it's more creative, because that could be a fun way to answer that question if you get it from a potential client or customer. And I would say for us, it's like, if you can demonstrate that you're a step ahead and you've already thought through some of those questions and challenges and you have those answers ready, I think that gives a great experience for that end customer, that it's not just, hey, here's the answer to your question, but here's a video I made because not only have you had this question, but many others have had this question as well.
Yeah, I actually do that a lot with my videos. I actually just had a consulting call with a lawyer before this, and I was like talking about our process and talking about what we do. And I was like, oh, you know what? I actually just made a video about all of this content. I'm just going to send you that so you can watch it at your leisure. It's not a sales pitch. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just saying, like, this is what I recommend people do. And if you want to take that advice, you can. So yeah, having some of these FAQs in video form is huge, because then you can be like, well, I don't need to talk your ear off about this for another 5 minutes because I made a video about it. Watch the video if you're interested.
Yeah. And Chris, and Chris, with that in mind, I mean, my gut tells me that that's more effective. What have you seen? I mean, with between your business and your clients, how important and impactful is it to have a video that is maybe addressing or answering some of these questions versus simply having either text or doing a phone call to answer those same questions?
So I would say, like, I've sort of seen the video industry evolve in the past 15 years. And it used to be that you needed a commercial, on TV or something like that. And then you needed a video on your website talking about who is the company, what does the company do, what's our ethos. Now it's really trending to having a video strategy, to having regular video content that you're putting out on a regular basis that people can tap into and opt into and give you feedback on. So I would say it's really no longer about, do I need a video for my website? It's what kinds of videos should I be making on a regular basis to be interacting with people and get that face time?
No, I appreciate that. Great tips there. So, I mean, I think the one thing that a lot of listeners will think about is, hey, video sounds great for you people who are super polished and very articulate and well groomed and pretty in front of the camera, but that may not be everyone, right? So, should everyone use video, or is video something that should only be left to those folks who really shine with the camera in their face?
Yeah, I tell people that it's a talent and a skill. Like, there's some people who are just going to start doing it and be just talented at it and just be natural in front of the camera and able to speak. And there's other people who have to build that skill. But I also tell folks it's kind of like the skill of public speaking. In corporate America, in the past 20, 30 years, it's like, okay, if you want to rise in corporate America, you need to be good at public speaking. You need to be able to get up in front of a group, give a presentation, and people did, Toastmasters and things like that to learn how to be comfortable in front of a group. Video is that next step. It's that next skill that you need to learn if you want to be able to reach a wider audience. And the current events of today with COVID-19 and coronavirus have only expanded that, 1,000 times, because there's a lot of people I talk to that are really, really great in person. They're just personable. They're able to converse and they're able to like educate and talk very well in person. But when you put a camera up in front of them, they're like, how do I do this? Like, what do I say? I feel like I'm rambling, because you're not getting those interactions from that person on the other end. You just have this blank camera staring at you and you're like, I lost my train of thought. When you lose your train of thought in conversation, someone jumps in and helps you out. That doesn't happen with camera. So I tell folks, like, be okay with being bad first. Like, you need to be okay with your first 10 videos just being bad and improve over time. I started working, actually, my cousin is a consultant, an operations consultant, and works with like very big companies, has his own company. And I told him about some of the success that I was having with video. And he's like, I got to do that. Like, he's, a small company. He's the face of the company. And I said, well, list out some of the topics you want to talk about. And then what I recommend you do before we even do a shoot together, pick up your phone every morning and spend 15 minutes answering one of those questions to your phone and record it. And he put them in folders for me, and he put them in labeled, one like absolute garbage, maybe okay, and good. And so he kind of and a lot of them were the same topic that he just did different takes of it each day and got a little bit better each time. So a lot of people are not going to be great at it when you first start out. I just say you've got to be bad first and get better as you go. And don't put something out just because you recorded it. Like, just because you may take you 2 hours to record your first video, just because it took you 2 hours to record your first video, that doesn't mean it's good. Like, look at it, and if you think it's good, put it out there. But if you think maybe it doesn't reflect you well, you don't have to put it out, and just realize you're kind of investing your time into a process.
No, those are great tips there. And, you talked about talent and skill, and skills can be developed. And I think that's really the important thing, is recognizing that, yes, some folks may seem more natural on camera, but there's some folks who absolutely just work hard at it, or, actually take the time to prep and develop the skill. And it's one of those things where video certainly requires more prep time than, say, an audio version. Before we hit record, I told you that, I did the audio version of this podcast starting back in 2017. We did not start doing video, I believe, until last year, just for context. So, and for me, I had I won't call them excuses, but at the time I was working full time still. So I never knew where I was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to be in my work office. I didn't know if I was going to be home. I didn't know if I was in the back of a car. I didn't know if I was in a closet. So I'm like, I can't do video. I might have clothes behind me. So it was always one of those things. But the other piece was, I also, had to think about the way I came across on camera. Was I giving the best version of myself? Did I look polished? That was something else for me just to think about while I'm trying to focus on an interview. Now I got to sit here and wonder, like, am I moving too much? Should I keep my head straight? And my hands moving too much? So I had to think about all the mannerisms and all the motions, and there just seemed to be a lot, and it was kind of overwhelming. For someone who is interested in using video, but maybe they are where I was maybe 2 years ago, and they're just overthinking this and thinking about the way they're going to come across, and, not putting out the best version of themselves. What would you say to them to help them get comfortable getting started?
I would say just do it, first of all. Let yourself be bad. But the other thing is, people tend to want to sometimes put out this version of themselves that's this professional, or be looked at in a certain way. And we can see through that. Like, people can just tell if you're not being authentic. So just be yourself. Actually, the woman that I was talking to, who's an immigration lawyer earlier, she said, oh, there's this really great guy out there who does these immigration videos, and they're super informative, but he's super silly, and they're super entertaining, but sometimes the silliness overshadows, the content. What do you think about that? And I'm like, if you're silly, be silly. If you're serious, be serious. Don't try and be any way other than the way you are. There's certain tips that I can give people to maybe phrase things in certain ways to make a video shorter or succinct or what have you. But just be yourself and just talk passionately about what you do. And that's what people want to connect with. They just want to see you talking about what you really, really love talking about.
No, and I think the point there is that the goal is not to get 1 million views. The goal is not to be so entertaining and over the top and compelling that you go viral. I think a lot of people think of, hey, I'm going to make this video and millions of people are going to see it, and it's got to be great. So I got to take all the time and energy to make sure this thing is, perfect. And that's not necessarily the case, and to your point, especially if you're focused in B2B, you just need 30 people potentially. 30 of the right people, the right potential clients to see that video could really have a massive impact on your business. So speak with passion, speak with energy, speak with knowledge, and speak from a position of serving and giving value to the audience that you're looking to connect with. And that's probably going to be way more powerful than trying to be funny or be silly or be witty or over the top and create this persona that ultimately isn't true to who you are at your core. And I think that's one of the things too, because, I think anybody who spends the time and energy to create a video, you certainly want to see like the numbers go up and the vanity metrics shoot up and all people loving it and the comments are coming in. And that may not be the case. And if you're only
Right.
doing it for those reasons, you may be disappointed in the results. So, what do you say to that as far as folks just managing their expectations, especially starting out with those videos?
Well, a couple things. First of all, like to your point about the audio and getting in front of the camera, like video doesn't necessarily need to mean you on camera. One thing that I'm doing now is, especially with informal conversations that I'm having with prospects or clients, is I'll say, hey, can I record a little bit? And let me just get some of this recorded because I'll ramble on about all the things that I need to tell them. And I'm like, that's the perfect thing. I wish I had that. You can get little bits of audio and have some nice graphic or animation and put those two things together. And that is a more engaging post than just a written piece or just a still photo or just the audio. Like if you take those different pieces together, you have a video that is letting people hear how you are. Maybe if you don't like to be seen, or maybe if you don't like your background or you're recording, your podcast from your closet or whatever, you can still take those elements and create a compelling video from it. So I recommend that. And the other thing is, yeah, to your point, like with vanity metrics, there's a lot of people out there, especially that I see on LinkedIn, who are like, oh, I need 10,000 followers. Once I have 10,000 followers, then my brand's going to blow up. Oh, I need 50,000 followers. And the reality is that most small businesses couldn't handle on bringing 10 new clients in a week. So why do you need 10,000 followers? Like you want 1,000 followers who are actually really interested in your business, in your thoughts, in your brand. And that can really only be built one person at a time. And so I really recommend having a very, decisive strategy in helping other people, like helping them with their content and their businesses that they're putting out on LinkedIn, so that when you do put something out, they're actually interested in hearing what you have to say because you're actually building a real relationship with them through the content that they're doing. So it's a combination of creating content, but not necessarily always needing to be the focal point and the star, and saying, let me see what I can give to other people and how I can give them value. And then when you put something out, they're going to be more than willing to help you and further your message.
Yeah, I think those are really great tips there as far as understanding how to approach this and coming at it with the right mindset, especially when we think about what we can do from a business standpoint and not getting caught up in the number of followers or the number of views that we get, but more so the quality and the actual, specificity of the demographic of who we're reaching, and are these the right clients or potential clients that we're shooting for in our business. With that said, I know obviously from a B2B standpoint, the ability to target makes LinkedIn an ideal platform, as well as the organic reach, as you mentioned before. I think when a lot of people hear video, though, they go to YouTube first. YouTube, maybe even Facebook videos. Is there a different approach, or should you be looking at, if you're creating videos, should you be looking at YouTube, Facebook videos, or maybe some of these other platforms that were built more specifically for video versus, say, LinkedIn?
Yes. I mean, you definitely can. I do have a couple clients that I actually recommend they purpose their videos for LinkedIn as well as for YouTube. YouTube works tremendously well for how-to videos. So, if you are a roofing company, make how-to videos about how to repair roofs. Put them on YouTube and put them on LinkedIn. If you are a graphic designer, make how-to videos on how to do your own graphic design for your website and put those on YouTube. But LinkedIn really shines and Facebook really shines with shareable content. So, there you're looking to create small, short snippets that do provide value, but are maybe not necessarily how-to videos. That works really well for companies that have processes or complicated products that you want to explain to people and just say, this is why you need this process, or this is how our company looks at this particular process as opposed to our competitors, and making it super short, spoon feeding it to a very niche audience, so that, you're really serving that audience. I mean, talking about my cousin who's the consultant, there's not a ton of people making videos about Six Sigma process improvement. So his audience is super small, but they are starving for that content because they talk about this every day internally in their companies. They're trying to build practices in their companies to save money. And so when he's putting out videos about these processes, there's a very niche audience that loves to talk about that stuff. And they're oftentimes not knowing how to search for that on YouTube, because that's not typically what you're searching for on YouTube. Can it work? Yeah, like everything can work everywhere, but I really, really recommend LinkedIn for those things that are more niche to a certain small group.
Yeah, let's dive into LinkedIn a little bit more from that perspective, right? So I know one of the things we talk about with LinkedIn is the ability to target and get really specific with your audience. What's that first step, right? For someone who maybe hasn't explored all the advantages or all the targeting capabilities of LinkedIn, do you start by making the video, or do you create groups, or what's the first step to actually figure out who in the world you're trying to talk to in the first place?
Yeah, so I actually made a video about this last week that is kind of my exact process. And I think it was helpful for a lot of people. I believe in having a pretty clear process as far as who you're reaching out to. If you only have 100 or 1,000 followers on LinkedIn, you just put out your video, you're probably not going to get a lot of views. You want to have a process that allows you to be networking and making new connections for people who are prospects and who are in your industry. And what I recommend doing is just systemizing that in a small way. Spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn, searching for maybe hashtags around your industry, or searching, you've got the Pro Finder and Premium that allow you to search for different kinds of roles. Find these people in these different roles and start to build connections with them. That can either be through looking at their content and interacting with their content first, which is what I try and do. Build up that relationship first, comment on their stuff, get them to reply. If they reply, that's like a little yes to move the conversation forward. After that, connect with them. Just say thanks for connecting. And then when you have a piece of content, or when you've interacted or provided them some kind of value, tag them in your post and say, hey, these are my thoughts on XYZ topic. John, Jim, and Cheryl, like, what do you think about this? I know you were interested in this from our conversations. And that gets them really realizing that you are trying to provide them value, trying to get them talking about things that they're interested in, and move the relationship forward that way.
So you're telling me you don't just go through people who you think are a good fit, hit connect, and pitch them immediately. That's not the way you do it, and try to get them to buy something the moment you connect with them?
No, like I see that happening all the time. And again, I see these people building up their networks that way. And I'm like, your network, it doesn't have any value if you're just reaching out and just connecting people and just trying to get them to talk about what you want to talk about. Like, you need to find ways to engage with people on what they want to talk about, help them out, and then they're going to want to, engage with you. But otherwise, they're just going to ignore you.
Yeah, I think the tips you gave are very powerful and simple. And it just comes down to being a human person, right? And just actually, yes, it's the internet, but it's being social and it's being mindful and adding value to others. And the process you just laid out was, first and foremost, we need to find who the people are we're trying to talk to. So follow relevant hashtags, follow relevant discussions, follow either even people in your own network, connect with those people, see what they're talking about, see who's commenting on the post, engage with that content, engage with those individuals with the post that they're making, then look to move to make a connection, then look to, add value to them in some way, shape, or form. And then you can kind of move to an offline conversation if there's an opportunity there. But it's about building that connection so you have something to talk about. You can identify some shared interests and go from there versus reaching out immediately and trying to sell, which unfortunately so many people do on LinkedIn. I get a request, and within that same request, they start pitching me on their business and what they do. And, we've got this service and we're the number one company on blah, blah, blah. And here's an overview of our presentation. And so let's set up a time to talk. What? I didn't even get to say hello yet. And these guys, you're asking me to set up a time to talk. You don't even know if I need this. Right. So, so many people do that, and it turns people off to LinkedIn, unfortunately, that I think those who don't use LinkedIn very often, if they get pitched like that, they just don't use the platform. But right. I think what Chris and I are saying is the platform is filled with rich content, rich connections that can certainly help you grow. You can ignore those phishing attempts that come through, but if you employ some of the tactics that he's talking about, I think you can see great success. And Chris, you mentioned one of the posts you made last week. We were talking kind of offline that you did something I thought was just absolutely brilliant. You actually went through my LinkedIn profile and created kind of a screenshot video where you kind of scroll through and you commented on what I was doing well with my videos and where I could add video more. And you just gave me it was maybe a 30-second video, and you just gave me some critique, some feedback, and that was that. And the reason that's so powerful is, Chris obviously has a video production company where he has his services that he could do, but he didn't say, "Hey, John, we help make videos and, check us out and let us know if you want to hop on a call." He went through what I was doing well on LinkedIn, and he commented and said, "Hey, you're doing this good. Hey, I think you can improve on a couple of things here." But overall, he gave me his feedback. He gave me value by going through my profile, completely unsolicited, by the way, but he gave me value by going through it and just sending it to me. And at no point did he say, let's hop on a call or blah, blah, blah. He just went through it. And if you can use video in a way to add value to a potential client through that way, I'm assuming Chris didn't just pick me out, but he probably did this for other potential clients. That approach is probably way more likely to elicit at least a response than someone, sending me your pitch deck and telling me how great you are. He showed me his value in that 30 seconds and the time he took to actually engage with me in my content, and also just helping me realize how other people are viewing my content. Because sometimes you don't even know how your stuff shows up, unless you go to your profile and look at it that way. You don't even know how you show up in the world. So even just looking at that and seeing the different posts and the cadence was really insightful for me. But Chris, what do you, I guess I want to understand your thought process in taking that approach, which again, I believe is just next level to really drive that kind of engagement. And then how can listeners, viewers, your clients, how do folks who don't have video production companies, how do we kind of leverage that same philosophy to give value to our intended target audience?
Sure. Yeah. So, and by the way, like that video that I made for you doesn't really have any heavy production work to it. Like there's maybe a little trimming on the beginning and end of where I started and ended the recording, but it's just made with a screen recording software called OBS, Open Broadcaster Software. People who are gamers already know about it. You can screen record and record yourself at the same time, and it's a really basic video. It basically just came to me as being like, this is a way to make a great introduction to people, is by providing them as much value as possible. And I think a lot of businesses can do this, but some are going to be more challenging than others. But the more value you can provide initially and the more it relates to your industry, the better off you are. The tricky thing is figuring out, like, does the person that I'm being introduced to really think that this is going to be valuable? And that is going to shift based upon who they are and what the services you provide are. But a lot of times you can get clues, and a lot of times you can get clues from people's posts. Like if you're following a hashtag that is hashtag selling my house or whatever, or like, mortgage problems or whatever, you can start to find out the conversations that people are having and go, hey, I can help this person. I can contribute some kind of, advice to them on how they can solve that. And immediately give them value when you make that intro. And I think we're probably going to see a lot more video intros over the coming years, and it's probably going to start to become a little bit more like spam. But if you are actually providing value with that video intro, it's worth every second that you spend recording and learning how to do it, because people just really appreciate it. They get to know you. And the other benefit that has come out of this is that now, through using video as my outreach, I'm really only having conversations with people that I want to be talking to. And I'm really only now working with clients that I really want to be working with, because they get to meet me initially and they get to see if my energy, if my vibe is the same as theirs. And if it is, they're like, cool, let's get on a call. He knows what he's talking about. I like the way he talks. Let's talk. And the people who don't love my vibe, then they can go find somebody else, which is fine too. So it's this added benefit that I've found, that it's like, okay, not only is it working to build my business, but I'm enjoying a lot of the clients, sometimes more than previous jobs, where people come to you and they're like, I got money and I want to work with you. And you're like, okay, well, they got the money, so I guess we got to do the work. But it's another huge benefit to using those video intros.
Yeah, and I think the thing that was even powerful for me was like, that wasn't our first interaction. So it made it even more powerful, because we had already actually did a previous, call, and video, to me, well, it's not to me, neuroscience actually proves that video is a great way to drive a connection. And we did an interview with David Mimran Scott, who's the author of Fanocracy, and he talked about the science behind it. But by actually, using video, after a while, after a little bit, it feels like we're in the same room. So, we are talking to each other, even as we're recording this right now. We're looking at each other, or focusing intently on the conversation. So there's a connection just as close as being in the same room. Whereas, if we were doing this just over the audio, that connection wouldn't be there. So the ability to actually look at each other, and when you're sending out video for folks to see your face, they can get more comfortable with you. They can get more familiar with you. It's a powerful way to actually drive connection. So as you're looking to build your B2B business, developing that trust, developing that connection is a strong way to build. And I think video just works very, very well from that perspective. I want to hit you with a couple of I'm sorry, let me let you respond to that first, and I'll go with my question.
I was just going to say, one of the interesting things that has happened, because now a lot of my clients are starting to use video for their businesses, and I haven't met a ton of them just because of COVID-19, but the ones that I have met or have gotten on a call with, it's like I've already met them and they've already met me, because we've been engaging with each other's videos for so long. And it's this weird thing where you're like, oh yeah, this is actually the first time we've met, but I felt like I've known you for 6 months because I've been seeing your face, seeing you talk, and vice versa. So it's this really weird sort of meta world that we're living in now. It's like you're getting another person that's like, oh, I've never actually met that person.
Well, think about the celebrity aspect, right? I mean, if you've ever met a celebrity or seen a celebrity and you're like, oh my goodness, that's such and such, and they have no clue who you are.
Right.
And in a way, at least for us from a podcast standpoint, or anyone who has a thought leadership platform or creative platform, you could have the same kind of thing, especially if you're at an industry event where, you're going to meet people who are consuming your content. And I remember the first time I went to a large real estate conference, and I remember seeing a couple of people that I knew from kind of the podcast space and videos. And I was really like, oh my goodness, that's such and such, and I felt a connection to that individual because I listened to them for hours upon hours. And, but that person had no idea who I was. Right.
Right.
And then you flip the script where, recently, right before, COVID hit, I was at an event and I was standing in line at a buffet or whatever. And someone looked over and saw me and, oh, hey, John. And I was like, hey, I don't know you, right? Like, they're like, no, but I listened to you. I'm like, oh, okay. And it just goes to show that, while it's great to have a two-way connection, sometimes by using video in particular, or at least the audio and podcasting as well, you can develop a strong connection with someone else. So it's really important to make sure we do that. Hey, I have one last question before we jump into our bullseye round.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about leveraging content, leveraging video in particular. What's one big mistake that you see people making when it comes to leveraging video for their business?
Sure. Coincidentally, also made a video about this, and it's 5 mistakes. But I will give. Can I give all 5 if I get?
Absolutely.
All right. So first one is not using subtitles. A lot of people don't use subtitles on LinkedIn. 60 to 70% of people on LinkedIn are watching video with the sound off. So if you do not have subtitles, you're going to miss out on the majority of your views because people are just like scrolling through, they're like trying to get a sense of what you're talking about. They just see a talking head. They don't know what you're talking about. They're going to go right by. And you can actually get your subtitles done for free by uploading your video to YouTube first, which I recommend. There's also apps out there, but I don't think anything does transcription as well as YouTube, so I recommend that. The other thing is that people a lot of times are filming their videos with their portrait mode, which on LinkedIn puts little bars on the side, just doesn't look as good. So I recommend either filming in landscape or having like a square mode, which you can get with an app called Filmic Pro that I recommend. The other tips are a little bit more broad, but basically one thing that I think people do are, as I think we were talking about before this, is that they put all this time and effort into making a video and they've done it and they think, okay, now I've got to put it out there. And I think right now there's certain people who are putting out content and they're like, oh, I just need to put out a ton of content. That's what Gary Vee says. That's what other people say. And it's like, if you're not representing your brand well, you're representing it poorly. And so I caution people to don't put out too much content. Don't put out too much video. Just because you're making a video doesn't mean it's going to be great. Put out 1 video a week. Be consistent with it. And if those are performing well, scale it and do 2 videos a week or 3 videos a week. But if they're not performing super great, if you're not getting calls from it, if you're not getting interest from prospective clients, keep refining until you scale. Like, don't scale right away. I should be remembering the 4th and 5th ones, but they're around those topics. Anyway, I'll give you the link to the video. It has some other tips on there as well, but those are probably the biggest ones that I would recommend people try.
Absolutely. Yeah, great tips there. And the subtitle one is an easy one for most people to think about. It does take some work, especially if you're trying to format it, but it's important because people are not reading or necessarily listening to the audio. And if there's subtitles, you can keep people's attention there a little bit longer, even if they're not as interested. They may stop and just read it just because that's what we do naturally. You're reading and words pop up, you're going to read it, and you just keep reading until you
Right.
snap out of it, I guess. So the subtitles can at least help with that engagement.
And yeah, if you hook them with that writing, with the subtitles, chances are at some point they're going to want to turn the sound on. Or if not this video, they're going to get some value out of it. And the next video we put out, they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to watch this with the sound. I'm going to hear how he talks, hear how he explains things. So it's really, really an easy thing to do, but a lot of people just don't take the time.
All right, Chris, give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Well, I think one of the biggest things in that regard could be getting laid off from my video production job in 2013, January 2013. That was a failure that most people would say it's like, oh, this is pretty bad, I'm getting laid off. But it was the single best thing for my career because I just love being in business for myself.
All right, give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Trello. I don't know if you use Trello, but I love it. Use it with my team. You can drag and drop tasks for people, reorder things. I swear by it.
Give me the book that you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
In the last year, well, this might be just cumulative. I think it's probably been the 4-Hour Work Week. I don't know if you've read it, but that book changed my life and made me like realize like, oh, I can do this. I can get out there and build a business.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I would say probably time tracking right now. Like I wasn't using a time tracking software for a while, and I've recently started. And having that and being very diligent about using it has been really great as far as like learning how well I'm using my time or if I'm slacking off.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
It's easy to be positive when things are going well. Yeah, like it's so easy to take it for granted. Like if you're going great with your business, you're like, well, I'm just amazing at business. It's like, it's very key to keep that in check and be like, well, there could be a lot of other factors here that are not true. So be thankful, but like keep in mind that there's going to be ups and downs.
What are you curious about right now?
I'm curious to be doing a little bit more A/B testing with some Facebook ads that we're going to start putting out there. We spend a little bit of time with Facebook and Instagram, but I'm going to be returning to it just to see the difference between the leads we generate there and leads we're generating with LinkedIn.
And you are in Chicago, so give me the best place to grab a bite in the Chi.
All right. I would say probably Pizza Art Cafe, which is, have you ever been there? It's in Lincoln Square. It has like some of the best focaccia bread I've ever had in my life, and have not been able to get back there since the reopening, but it's on the top of my list.
No, I have not been there. I was actually thinking of, I think the place I'm thinking of was called The Art of Pizza.
Yes, I think that's on like Ashland or something. And this one is, it's on Rockwell, I think.
Got it. Okay. Pizza Art Cafe. We'll have to check that out the next time we're allowed to come to Chicago. So we'll keep that in mind. Chris, this has been great information, man. Just filled with a lot of great actionable insights in regards to leveraging video to grow your business. There's so much more that we certainly could talk about that we just didn't get around to. But for anyone who is interested in learning more about leveraging video for their business, especially if they are trying to go B2B or building a personal brand, what is the best way to reach out and get in touch with you?
I would probably say LinkedIn. Chris Weiher, Weiher. You can search me there, connect with me, and I'm happy to respond to any DMs or questions if people just have questions on doing videos.
Chris, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on Target Market Insights, the Multifamily Marketing Show. I hope you have a wonderful day.
My pleasure. This was great. Thanks for having me.